It's so over. We're cooked. You think to yourself, as you look at an Instagram infographic telling you that the ice caps have already melted, microplastics are in every single part of your body, and that the Earth's temperature will rise by 2 degrees Celsius over the next 30 years. You are already sweating like a 12-year-old Sheen factory worker after a 14-hour shift, because not only can you feel the Earth getting hotter, you can see the seasons slowly devolving into their extremes. Eternal summer and eternal winter arises. The days start passing faster, like a locomotive picking up steam while heading towards the cliff of uncertainty. Stocks crash, the economy is in a perpetual state of collapse. The recession has come, but it's invisible. You just can't be bothered anymore. Aliens are finally confirmed to be real by the government, but no one seems to care, because they're thinking about how to pay next month's rent if they can't even afford to feed themselves. Because you know that the world is in shambles. You don't make any plans for the future, because what's the point? It's all gonna be over soon, so why should you try to improve your life? It'll just be wasted energy. Energy that you can use to partake in as many earthly pleasures as possible before inevitably venturing into the great unknown afterlife. A shallow prayer escapes your lips just in case God is alive and well. But Nietzsche couldn't have been wrong, could he? The world as you know it has been collapsing for the last 4 years, and you just take the slightest bit of pride by telling people, "I told you so." Nothing matters in this broken world. How can other people not see it? If life had meaning at one point, it had lost it. Everything is, and always was, meaningless. You revel in your awareness. You could see the collapse coming from a mile away. Even Rome had to fall sometime. It's so over, and you're right. Right? Right? No. What if I told you there's still some hope left? What if I told you it's not over? There's still time. It's not over until we bite the dust. Life is a story that only ends when your life ends. Until then, every single second can change your life. It's not over until the very last second the mushroom cloud reaches my skin. Did you recoil at the possibility of being wrong? Are you just listening to my video while playing some silly games or drawing to confirm your predetermined beliefs about life? Have you just accepted your endless cycle of consumption, and you're now looking for videos that validate your beliefs? If one of these descriptions fit you, then this video is especially for you. I know what it's like to believe in hopelessness, in despair, to revel in its comforts, because it's the ultimate excuse of wasting away your life with quick pleasures. When you want your life to end in one way or another, abandoning it seems like an easy and safe solution. Erasing the idea of a future you makes it much easier to take the current you for a joyride. But please trust me when I tell you that it doesn't have to be this way. There is a future for us, and our life has meaning. This is why Gen Z can't lose hope. Now look, this video is not strictly geared towards Gen Z, because this is a global issue that doesn't care about age brackets. But I have seen many people around my age say that it's so over and that we're cooked as a collective at the tender age of 22 years old. Our lives are just beginning, so I think it's especially silly that young adults believe it's over for them just because the internet has manipulated people into believing you must reach success by the age of 18. And if you're any older than that, you can't do anything anymore. Even if you're a 90-year-old watching this, I can tell you with confidence that our world isn't over and that your life has meaning to the very end. I also wanted to encourage Gen Z for once, because a lot of the videos about this generation are about the hopelessness in Gen Z and how their fate has already been determined for them, and it's bad. Even I am guilty of this with my video Why Gen Z is Losing Hope, because it's not exactly hard to see the problem if it's stabbing you in the groin and calling you a stinky winky ugly mug. These videos might help point out the many problems that we face in modern society, but they don't necessarily present any solutions or the possibility that it might just turn out fine. I understand why they do it, because there's a huge amount of views and attention to be gained from a so-called doomer mindset. It's much easier to accept defeat than it is to keep fighting for a better life, but I firmly believe there's a lot of hope for this generation, and just for humanity's future in general, because we have survived so much worse before. Okay, I'll admit that we don't have it the worst right now. There were many times in history, even recently, where the situation looked much more bleak, but just because we're not going through a famine or some sort of plague, doesn't mean we're not allowed to be upset about it. Pain is pain. It's not a competition between the generation who has suffered the most. That's the wrong thing to focus on. So yes, things used to be even worse. We currently live in one of the most prosperous times in our history as a species, yet the people seem to be more pessimistic about the future than the generations of people who lived through the wars. It's probably because of our extremely high intake of alarming and negative news on the internet. Our brain has a bias towards danger, because its objective is to survive. So some shady folk decided to exploit our focus on danger with really alarming articles, posts, memes, etc. And there we have our modern misinformation mess. My solution is to just delete the news altogether, or at least the global news. It's never useful, and if the news are important enough, you will hear about them eventually through a friend or your surroundings. It's impossible to miss the news altogether anyway. I'm well aware that these last 4 years have been rough on all of us, even catastrophic. Sad, some might say. But your past doesn't define you. You define yourself. So if you choose to throw your life away because of 4 terrible years, sure, go right ahead. But if you want to change it for the better, you need to understand this. Everything is out of your control, except for your own personal actions. It's not your fault the last 4 years were so terrible for everyone, but now it's your responsibility to start picking up the pieces and put your life back together again. It's very frustrating to clean up all of the BS you weren't responsible for, but if you don't do it, then no one will. But you might think even your actions in this world don't matter, so what's the point of trying to get your life back together? Well, your actions matter, because of something called the butterfly effect. It's a theory that states a small event like the flap of a butterfly's wings can cause huge chains of causalities in the future, thus resulting in tornadoes and so many casualties. Your actions could be just as important and you don't even know it. For example, you could choose to go to Vietnam for vacation, eat at a random restaurant in a smaller town, meet a cute girl, and now you're getting married to her, all because you chose to go to that specific restaurant in that specific part of Vietnam at the same time she was going, while also deciding to talk to her. No matter how small your decisions may seem, they can have the biggest consequences, good or bad. So imagine what you will be able to achieve if you start doing something productive or creative every single day. Doing small, seemingly insignificant tasks every day could make the world a better place more than you could even imagine. Because you, beautiful butterfly, decided to spread your wings and fly away. Consistency is key when it comes to changing your life. If you improve at literally any aspect of yourself every single day, eventually you're going to be so much better than you could even imagine. So, sure, your actions do have an impact, no matter how small, because of the butterfly effect. But how does one cope with unchangeable circumstances like a terrible economy or global warming? There is one simple principle you need to follow, and that is if you can do something about it, do it. No matter how small it might seem, who knows, maybe you cleaning up the beach a little bit causes a chain reaction that prevents a mutated superbacteria from forming, because you clean up some broken glass and prevented the patient zero from getting infected. It might sound far-fetched, but this could have actually happened a bunch of times throughout human history. I digress. If you can do something about it, do it, and if you can't, you shouldn't worry about it because there's nothing you can do. I know that it can be hard considering that modern media keeps pushing these massive global problems into our face, but some things are just out of our control. I could say, be like water, go with the flow, but honestly, I don't blame people for worrying about the future. Our brains were designed to care about potential danger. Truth is, the media doesn't dictate reality. It might seem like the world is so close from going under every single day, but the media is just edging you for money and attention. We have been living in a state of perpetual collapse, where every year there's a new cult that says Planet X is gonna hit us, but this time it's real, just trust me, bro. Normally, you would just laugh at them and go on with your life. But because the media likes to put on a facade and use things that you might not understand so well, like the economy, for example, their threats seem much less empty. But here's the reality. Life could end at any second. Security is an illusion. Wow, this is so helpful and uplifting. Thank you, you might think to yourself. What I mean by that is the universe could collapse in on itself every single microsecond. A mega flare could wipe us all out, a comet, the Yellowstone volcano, and so much more. Every single day is a gift, and you have to stop taking them for granted. The fact that we're able to think so far ahead into the future at all is a blessing. Our lives are so safe, we think that a 5-year plan makes sense because we live to see it fulfilled. The future is, and always has been, uncertain. Sure, you might not be able to buy a house in the near future or start a family, but you should be focusing on yourself right now and looking for ways to make that happen in spite of the circumstances. If you want a house and kids, that is. Realistically, nobody knows what the future even looks like, so our whole economy can change, and after some years of extremely tough times, you'll actually be able to afford a house again. I know that we were promised by our previous generations that if we work hard, we'll get a house and we'll be able to start a family. In reality, it's not that simple anymore. You would need to do a bunch of things before you're finally able to achieve this dream that has been instilled in us since we were little. The promise is not a guarantee anymore, and we have to come to terms with the fact that life can suddenly get much harder or much easier due to circumstances out of our control. At least World War III didn't start. It could always be worse, so we need to be thankful for what we have, Count our blessings, because oh boy can it get bad. Those poor influencer kids, they didn't deserve to have their whole life on camera. Life seems to have its own sense of justice that no human can comprehend. Or life is just unfair, because some people get better hands in life and some people get worse, so we truly can only do the best with the cards we were given. And I also think we have to set more concrete goals for ourselves. Owning a house and having kids are such abstract goals that are actually very hard to achieve if you have no plan. You don't even need to have a family to be happy or have a meaningful life necessarily. It's always this universal standard for success, and I personally love the idea of starting my own family, and I think it would do good for a lot of people. But there are people out there who don't want that lifestyle due to numerous reasons, and that's cool too. But if you're convinced that starting your own family and or owning property is your life dream, then life might appear not fixable or over because you have such large goals. The reason why our lives appear to be unfixable is the magnitude of our problems. You step into the world, there's a million problems, and you just assume that you're screwed. Our brain gets overwhelmed by all of these problems because they appear like a mountain, but in reality, most of our problems are small issues stacked on top of each other like two kids in a trench coat. Let's say you want to find a significant other. That objective is extremely vague, and there's no way to achieve it by working really hard to find somebody to love. There are a number of things you need to do first before you can find the one. For example, if you think you're too out of shape and ugly, you have to start exercising and building confidence in yourself. You don't even get a girlfriend once you do these things. This is just preparation for the next step, which is to talk to women. If you don't know how, that's another thing you'll need to learn, and this goes on and on until you find someone through the numbers game. I know how this is extremely frustrating and nobody teaches us these things, but if there are no teachers, you must become your own teacher. A lot of young people are sadly starting to become neets or hikikomori because they can't cope with the pressure of life. But sorry if I sound a little harsh, you need to do something about it while you still can. That's right, you might lose the ability to do something about it if you don't stop it. So please, start working on yourself. You'd be surprised by how much you're able to change your own life. You heard me right, you can get up and start working on improving your life. You don't need the world to collapse to finally be free. Speaking of which, you've probably seen some people that are hoping for society to collapse or for a new hamdemic to happen. I actually understand where they're coming from. They're probably sick of the modern lifestyle and they want it to end at any cost, even if millions of lives are lost. And some people definitely enjoyed the hamdemic, because they had a reason to never leave their goon cave. But you don't need society to collapse to live life like you want to. Sure, there are certain laws in place, but even then, you have free will and you can choose to follow your own laws. I'm not advising my viewers to commit crimes, I'm just saying, you're completely free to do whatever with your life, in theory. But people don't live like they want to, because not only are they slaves to the 9-to-5 job, they're also a slave to their own urges. Hedonism is just slavery of a different kind. You become a slave to your primal urges and desires. Sometimes you don't even want to goon, but because your brain got hooked on it, it makes it really difficult for you to deny the urge. You have to build up tolerance for the brain's command center by refusing all sorts of desires from your id, and you'll be able to finally break free from your shackles of urge fulfillment. Paradoxically, discipline can give you much more freedom. You'll be much happier if you live a life that is dictated by you, because even if the process of writing a book, for example, or making YouTube videos is difficult, and not as enjoyable as choking the one-eyed snake, the end result will leave you much more content than a simple urge fulfillment, because you actually deserve all of the joy you experience from creation. You worked hard for it, and now you have created something you wanted to create. This will be something you can point to when asked, what did you do with your life? And if you free yourself from your reliance of quick pleasures, you can use that time to figure out how you can live with a more non-traditional job, because you have so much more free time since you removed the goon sessions. Or you can start creating something of your own to cope with your day job. I wish we could all just make art all day, but we live under capitalism in most of the world, so we need to have a job to afford to live. Our only option out of it is to scheme our way for some more money. So far, it looks like we're not at the brink of a revolution, so the coping will have to do for now. Completely unrelated fun fact, you only need 3% of the population for a successful revolution. Creation is also a part of human nature, but the pleasure and reward that comes from it is delayed, so most people shrug it aside for their entire life, since we're much more oriented towards instant gratification nowadays. Let's face it, you do have limited time on this earth, so if you want to create something that has meaning and value to you and maybe even others, you better get started. Your life could end tomorrow, so be glad that you wake up every morning to a new sunrise and live your life how you want to live it. The only thing stopping you from living the life you want is yourself, and the need to make money. But who knows? Back then a 60-hour work week was standard. You could always try to get it down even more. You might even be more productive with a 4-day work week. After all, you still have some free will to pursue the life you want to live to an extent. You have free will, even if you don't believe in free will. You should, because believing in free will has the chance to change your life if it's real. If determinism is correct, then you were destined to believe in free will, and you can do nothing about it. If you believe in determinism, then you can use it as an excuse to let yourself go and follow your primal urges like an animal. Even if you are right and everything is deterministic in this world, then your belief was predestined and being right had no effect on your life. I like to call this the champion's wager, and you should logically believe in free will every single time. So conquer the day with that free will of yours while you still can. At least you're still alive today. That's all that matters. So don't spend that beautiful day doomscrolling till your head hurts. Meaningless activities lead to a meaningless life. If you do things that are truly meaningless, like doomscrolling or gooning for example, then your life will also be meaningless as a result. A life without meaning is a symptom of a deeper issue. For example, that of being addicted to technology and all kinds of dopaminergic activities. A sense of meaning in your life comes from creating. Art, for example. Or it comes from helping people in need and being a good person to everyone around you. Once you provide some sort of value of the soul into the world, you will start to feel like your life has meaning. Until then, watching endless videos, even if it's on YouTube, because let's be honest, a lot of us have a YouTube addiction here, myself included, will leave you feeling like a meaningless husk of a person. It's kind of sad that the feeling is actually true if you live a meaningless hikikomori type of lifestyle, and I think this is our brain trying to motivate us to do something. So try helping some people, or write that book you always wanted to, whatever it is, almost anything is better than doom scrolling. Limit your content intake while you still can. For me, I use 1,000,000 timers to make myself feel guilty for wasting so much time, but I think you need to find a method that suits you, because I'd rather fight to the very end instead of accepting my constant doom scrolling and entertainment addiction. The thing is, this is the symptom of something much deeper. Depression. The elephant in the room that everyone jokes about, but refuses to acknowledge when they have it, has been growing more and more rampant over the years. I'm also referring to the state of being depressed, because the condition depressive disorder needs professional medical help to be cured. Everyone uses the term depression interchangeably with a major depressive disorder, but being depressed and having the disorder are two very different things. So a lot of people are incredibly depressed now, and it's affecting their judgment of the world. Instead of living in the real life, they live in their own head, or they practically live on the internet, where the bad thoughts can fester like cockroaches, and there's so many echo chambers of despair on the internet whose only purpose is to confirm everyone's predetermined beliefs that everything is bad now. It's like they view reality through a tainted sad cat lens. Although technically everyone perceives life through a warped lens of reality, because our minds have 1,000,000 filters attached to them. If we saw unfiltered reality, we would probably go insane instantly. There's just too much information. That's why our brains tend to focus on certain topics so that we are able to handle life. But sometimes our filters get corrupted, and you start seeing life as this terrible curse that has been forced upon you since birth, and now you have to ask the waiter for extra ketchup because they forgot to put the ketchup packets in your Happy Meal. I know that things aren't perfect. They might even be bad, but they're not unfixable. I think the media and social media especially exaggerates the severity of certain events, and people start to believe that everything is terrible. Your thoughts are not reality, no matter how hard you believe them. So if these thoughts keep telling you that everything is over, there's only suffering and no meaning, you have to pause and meditate for a while. Let them pass through you like water, and remember, you're still here, and you're still breathing. You're not in acute danger, and all of these bad thoughts is our brain trying to rationalize our current situation. It does not reflect reality in any way. Our brains are just insane like that. We live our lives in our heads, so it's tempting to assume your thoughts are accurate assessments of reality. But if you start to trust your thoughts and feelings more than reality, things like the Flat Earth Society happen. If their brains and emotions are powerful enough to convince them that the Earth is flat in spite of the millions of pieces of hard, irrefutable evidence saying otherwise, imagine what your brain can do to your perception of reality. So to keep that puppy in working order, we must feed it positivity as well. You are what you eat, and this applies to your thoughts as well. You are what you think. So be thankful for the small things in life. The sunset, the warm summer breeze hugging you each season, the silly little cats in your neighborhood. Be grateful for the food you get, your family, and your friends. If you have some, of course. If you don't have any of that, your extremely depressed state actually becomes a rational response and you have to get out of that situation any way you can. Some people really do have crap life syndrome, and I don't think we should force positivity on them if their situation is that terrible. They can be as bitter and depressed as they want, and I wish your luck turns around soon. While positivity might seem kind of stupid in a broken world, we need it for our personal happiness, because remember, happiness comes from within, and the state of the world does not need to impact your state of happiness. That's why I like to put my phone far, far away, so the notifications can't bother me. It really is that damn phone, huh? I can't believe our parents were right. So much trouble and for what? Dommy mommy girlfriend ASMR? It doesn't even have the answers to all of my questions, like what is the best cryptid to date, wendigos in my area, how to catch a wendigo, how to make your skinwalker stop crying, and most importantly, what is the meaning of life? A lot of people seem to think that there is no meaning to life, and that there is no afterlife, especially some Gen Z folk. But just because nothingness is easier to understand doesn't make it right. This is a very common phenomenon I witness pretty much every day in real life and on the internet, and that is the logical fallacy that because something is easier to understand, it must be right. And this applies to everything. Life is complicated, so of course the answers to life's many mysteries would probably be complicated as well. Just because you can easily imagine nothing happening after you pass away doesn't mean you'll disappear into nothingness. In fact, we know that energy can't be destroyed, it can only be converted. Nothing truly disappears without a trace in the universe. It has to go somewhere. Even black holes are theorized to be connected to white holes that spit everything out. So if this theory about physics is true, why would one assume that your consciousness disappears upon leaving your bodily form? There is no evidence to suggest that there is no afterlife, just as there is no concrete evidence for the afterlife. Although there have been personal accounts from people who have been resuscitated back to life, that they were able to see a tunnel of light, or the afterlife, for a moment. It's really comforting thinking that you know what happens after we leave this plane of existence, even if it's nothing. Nothingness is comfortable, easy to understand, uncomplicated. The idea that after we pass away, we don't know what happens is terrifying. It's one of the few questions that has been plaguing humans for millennia. You can't escape from life or from existence itself. You're forced to exist and there's no end to it. But there's also so much beauty to be found in not knowing what happens next. Would you read a book where you know all of the contents already? Life is a journey full of surprises, and every moment of your existence can be turned into an adventure in an instant. Same applies to the meaning of life. It's much easier to understand that life has no meaning than to understand that it has infinite possible meanings, because we are the beings that give life meaning. If a tree fell in a forest and nobody heard it, did the sound even happen? From our perspective, no, because apparently, particles can change their state of being based on if you're observing them or not. Our sheer presence leaves an impact on the universe. Combine that with the butterfly effect and you have probably changed the world already simply by existing. Now that is what I call aura. The only way the universe has any meaning is through us, because meaning comes from within. We are the observers of a beautiful symphony. Our witness is the only thing proving the universe's existence. Things are meaningful and important because we make them to be meaningful and important. If nobody cared about football, for example, it would cease to exist as a sport. Same with basketball, or even more recently, esports. There are athletes who dedicate their entire lives into learning the sport and becoming the best at it. The sport becomes their life, therefore, also their meaning of life. Their purpose in life is to be really good at throwing the ball into the basket, for example, and no one says that what they do is meaningless. In fact, some of them even get huge money to play with balls. This is huge if you love playing with balls. But even if you don't, your life can be meaningful no matter what you do. You just have to be passionate about it. Basketball didn't exist in the Stone Age, unless we were balling with rocks and throwing them into holes. Did the cavemen have no meaning because basketball wasn't invented yet? If there is a single objective meaning and purpose to life, doesn't it make all of our passions and work kind of useless? The single meaning to life would also have to be very simple, because once again, we used to be cavemen. I hope you can see that logically you can create your own meaning for life, out of nothing but your interest and passion. Or people keep finding all of these new meanings to experience in this world because there's an infinite amount of them, and you can just pick and choose. So yes, life has meaning, it just varies from person to person. I feel like I also need to clarify that in spite of life having infinite meaning, things such as endless suffering or pleasure might not be where you find that meaning. I think this way of thinking can become redundant really quickly. While suffering and content can have meaning in the context of achieving something, things like pain for the sake of pain is like putting salt on salt. Pain and pleasure are ingredients to a meaningful life, but if one of these starts to dictate your life, you will quickly lose all meaning because you can never get enough. They are states of being. It's like my meaning of life is to be green, so I paint myself green, and now what? I have nothing to do and I'm green. These goals that involve getting an X amount of this thing usually leave people empty from my experience, because they can never get enough. It's like wanting to accumulate as much money as possible in your lifetime. You could never have enough, and there will almost always be someone richer. If your goal is to become the richest person on the planet, prepare to be disappointed, because there can only be one, and you have an insanely high chance of failing. So be careful when choosing what gives you a sense of meaning in life. I've never really seen or heard of anyone whose true purpose in life is gooning and doom-scrolling. People do these things to cope with their bad life situations, but if you truly think that this is what you were meant to do in this world, continue as usual. Usually, the easiest way of finding out if something is truly meaningful is imagining yourself about to pass away, thinking back on your life and being satisfied with what you did. If you really just wanted to be green your entire life, sure, go ahead, I can't stop you. But I think there's more to life than simply pursuing different temporary states of being. I also don't understand how the concept of meaning would exist if the universe has no meaning. Like, it had to come from somewhere, right? We can make meaningful pieces of art, and isn't the universe and life itself the biggest piece of art there is? How can it lack meaning if it created humanity? Humanity is like a show that fills every genre possible. I see meaning everywhere in the universe. We are the universe, observing itself, and if something is meaningful to us, that means it must be meaningful in the universe. Tough times never last, only tough people. Maybe you can change the state of your life through one YouTube video, so I would recommend going to healthygamer.gg with Dr. K. They have some amazing videos about how you yourself could improve your life or your mental health. And of course, seek a mental health professional if you are really this depressed and unable to do anything to change your life. Getting help isn't weak, it's one of the strongest things you could do. You know why so many people don't ask for help before they make unchangeable decisions about life? They didn't want to be a burden, or bother people. Well, I would rather have you bothering as many people as you need to get some help instead of you being 6 feet under, so please, don't be afraid or think you're a bad person for asking for help. Only you have the power to change your life, but you need to know how to do that safely. I have said this in a previous video, but I think it bears repeating. Why are we so afraid to rely on others? Our lives revolve around the connections we make with people. To share our deepest secrets, our desires, our plans, our thoughts. Connection isn't just the occasional hello. It's experiencing this wonderful, crazy, dark, beautiful world with one another. It is amazing that we're able to truly connect with another person, to come together as one. This mutual love for one another is an absolute impossibility in the universe. Think about it, our souls could have all spawned on different planets, and because the universe is so unimaginably vast, we would have never met each other, yet here we are. We could have been atoms scattered around the void, endlessly flying through space with no direction. Our whole existence could have been black holes in decay, slowly withering away as Hawking radiation. But we don't. We are still made of the very same stardust that forms all of our stars and planets, but our stardust has the ultimate gift of being together. In spite of the dark void of the universe and its mysterious machinations, we're here on this giant blue ball together. We might have no knowledge of where we come from, or where we go. We might not have all of the answers to the universe's mysteries. We probably have none. But what we do have is each other. In this vast expanse of nothingness that goes on for infinity, we have the joy of not being alone. In an infinite universe filled with darkness, I found you. In the eternal void of darkness and complete inhospitability, we found each other, and we care for each other, love each other, and mourn each other. To know that on this huge earth that has billions of people, there are people like you, who love you for who you are, might be the most beautiful thing in all of existence. Love is almost logically impossible. Separate, yet similar organisms embrace each other, even if most of the universe is hostile. It's a dog-eat-dog world out there. In all of the hostility and inevitability of life, love prevails. When you lift your arm voluntarily, how do you know it's you and not a muscle spasm? If this thing we call the soul is real, then love is our water, our food, and sleep. In spite of all of the sadness and bad things happening all around us, we have access to the most powerful thing in all of existence. Love. I hope you can see just how much meaning surrounds us. In love, in life, and even in video games. Gen Z shouldn't lose hope, because we have so much left to live, and there are so many beautiful things to life. On that note, thank you so much for 5,000 subscribers. I can't believe so many people want to watch my videos, so thank you from the bottom of my heart. I have a Discord server linked below if you want to chat with me. Like and subscribe, if you choose to do so, of course. And thank you for watching. See you, Space Cowboy.